I was in a place like this when I learned about you selling information on me, honey, Lane said. Still won't quit on that one, will you? Dan muttered as he collected his black coffee and settled himself at the table nearest the threshold into the bookstore, and opened his newly purchased paperback. I know what I heard, honey. The guy said, she didn't get into Harvard, and her boyfriend likes playing with her breasts. She lowered her voice on the last 4 words, but not nearly enough to avoid being overheard. Half a dozen other people exchanged furtive looks, including the cute young woman in the horn-rimmed glasses and peasant skirt whom Dan had exchanged cordial looks with back in the women's history section in the bookstore. Now she gave Dan a sympathetic look that he only just noticed as he wished he could melt into the floor. Forgetting his resolution not to look up from his book, he gave Lane a stern look. There must be thousands of women in New York who fit that description, you moron. Like I told you at the time. Lane sighed. This is why we're not together anymore. Got that right, Dan said without looking up from his book. I had all I could take of you being so freakin' paranoid. You're not paranoid if it's real, honey. Women have to live with this all the time. Yes, honey. I know. That's no excuse to accuse me of a thing like that, when that guy could have been talking about anyone. I gave you a chance to put it in writing, you know, Lane reminded him. All I wanted was a letter saying you hadn't sold information on me to anyone. Dan laughed. Right, that's all. Yes, honey, that's all. But you wouldn't give an inch, would you? Nope. His lips curled into a smile, and this time he succeeded. In not looking up from his book. He tried to recall why he'd let his ex talk him into coming into the city for the weekend. He knew why she'd made the invitation, since she'd thrown out several hints about wanting to get back together. Had he really been that lonely lately? A furtive glance over by the window, where the woman he'd noticed before was enjoying her latte, confirmed the answer. Yes, he had been that lonely. But not for Lane. The mystery lady's beautiful attire reminded him of what Lane had told him on their first date 2 years ago. He'd been careful not to comment on the fact that she'd worn jeans for the occasion, but she'd put 2 and 2 together. Don't ever expect me to wear a skirt, she'd warned him. It makes me feel vulnerable. Nothing wrong with that, of course. Just like there was nothing wrong with her not wanting to drive him anywhere in her car. After all, they had just met, and Dan had always prided himself on never faulting women for being concerned about their safety. It was only weeks later he'd learned that she hadn't been afraid he would attack her in her car, it was because she'd had concerns that it couldn't support the weight of 2 people. Then it was oh.